Hello and welcome to this edition of TORC Talk featuring Lauren Longfield. A TORC Talk is when we sit down and tease out the habits of some of the best athletes in obstacle course racing, specifically those athletes who make up the Obstacle Course Racing Collab, aka TORC. So Lauren Longfield is one of our founding 15 members, and she's relatively new to endurance sport, but she has already made a big splash in the ultra endurance community. So Lauren has a background as a bodybuilder and really didn't start running until about 2019 and has since figured out a way that she can handle a huge amount of volume and continue to improve along the way while staying healthy. Stay tuned to learn how Lauren's been able to maintain her motivation and also how she manages her time to do 13 plus hours of just running per week. To catch all the updates for TORC and the TORC Talks here on our YouTube channel, please hit subscribe and hit the little bell next to it to get all the notifications when we bring you new interviews and new content that will help the obstacle course race athlete. Cool. Here is Lauren Longfield. Cool. All right, Lauren. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. Why don't you tell people what you're up to? Where are you from? Where are you living right now?
So I live in Northwest Jersey, up by the Mountain Creek Tri-State venue. So it's a nice area. It's like the country. We have a lot of nice trails, some mountains, some smaller mountains. So it's the nice part of Jersey.
Yeah. Do you always put a disclaimer that way? Jersey is nice. It is really pretty. It just has a kind of that bad rap. It's just a bummer that it borders New York, and right when you come into New Jersey, it's not that nice.
Yeah,
but New Jersey in general is really pretty.
It is. It's called the Garden State, so it's not all city.
No, hardly. Yeah, and that's one thing. I think the first time I understood that there were any type of mountains in Jersey was during the Vernon race, and how much it absolutely destroyed me. I was like, oh, okay. There's some tough terrain here. So you actually, you snowboard and stuff there too, right? You go to Mountain Creek. Did you grow up going there?
Yeah, so I grew up snowboarding at Mountain Creek, from middle school onward. So I was really familiar with the mountain, and I never even knew there was races on there, Spartan races. So running up the mountain was quite different than what I was used to doing.
Snowboarding down it.
Yeah.
Do they have other races that are on at Mountain Creek, or is it just that Spartan race?
So I looked into it. There used to be a race. They used to do a 12-hour race up and down there, but they actually moved it to a different mountain called Campcraw in New Jersey. But besides that, I guess I heard they charge a lot of money to use their venue from race directors, so I don't think it's a popular spot because of that. So
yeah, they're probably doing that on purpose. They probably don't want to share it that much, but if Spartan wants to cough that money up, I'm sure they'll take it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, cool. So you've been doing obstacle course racing not that long, right? You're just kind of just getting into things.
Yeah, my first full season was 2019. I guess kind of my only Spartan season, honestly.
Right.
So yeah, don't have that many races under my belt right now.
How did you first get into it? I mean, tell us a little bit about that in terms of your background. If anybody follows you or sees your training, it seems like you put in a lot of volume, you do a lot of running. It seems like you spend a lot of time working hard, but you're new-ish to endurance sports in general, right?
I am. I graduated college in 2013 and I went to the gym, but I started lifting. So I ended up doing bodybuilding for 5 years, and I competed in the fitness bikini competitions. I was all into the bodybuilding, no cardio, none of that, no running, no anything like that. And I had some friends from my gym who said they wanted to go to a Spartan race. And this was in August of 2018. I didn't even know what a Spartan race was. But I said, okay, it was only a 5K, so I know it was short. And I basically walked. I walked the whole thing with my friends. And I thought the obstacles were pretty cool, and I was able to do them, which was kind of a shock to them because, I've never seen them before. And I thought it was pretty cool. So in September, I decided to start running and add a little bit of running into my training and train for an actual race, which was the Tri-State Super in 2018, which ended up being the one there was a nor'easter. While there was a nor'easter.
That was the least fun race experience I think I've ever had.
Yeah, I didn't know, I thought I was gonna die, but I was training for it, and I was like, I want to do it. So, I did it, and the whole race was like the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, people were like, there was buckets flying down the hill. I remember it was raining sideways. It was crazy. But when I did it, it was a pretty cool feeling, like being able to do it, and it was really challenging, and I really liked it. So after that, I decided to kind of go all in and start training for Spartan races to the best of my ability, like, run more and everything else. So that's kind of how it started.
Cool. Yeah. And I want to get into your initial experience with that, like, first race, and then how you kind of get competitive and how you've kind of built upon that first race in a relatively short amount of time. But I want to double back on the bodybuilding part. Like, how did you end up getting into that? Like, and just like, what did you enjoy about that? Like, I see it from the outside and I can kind of get it, but I don't 100% get like the appeal of bodybuilding. So like, how did you get into that?
So I was always like the skinny girl. I guess I was always built like a runner, just never was a runner. And I didn't like that. I kind of wanted to like be strong. I wanted to like gain muscle. So that's why I started lifting. But I wanted like a goal. And by choosing a competition, like a fitness competition, bikini competition, it was like a goal to strive for. And it's definitely hard. It was definitely one of the hardest things I've done, because you have to follow everything you put in your mouth has to be tracked. It's very like scientific, and it was really hard. So I guess I liked it because I liked the challenge of it, which is kind of now why I like Spartan, I guess, and now why I liked Spartan was I like the challenge, and I love to train, but I like to have a goal to train for. I think it like pushes you harder and everything. So that's kind of why I competed in bodybuilding, because I wanted to compete in something. I'm just like a competitive person, like naturally. So, and then I just kind of lost interest in bodybuilding. I didn't really enjoy it anymore. So it was kind of finding a Spartan race was like the perfect timing, to find something new that I enjoyed. So.
I could imagine something like that. And I always thought about this with some track and field events, something like a jumping event or like pole vault or something where you don't have anything. There's nothing you can do that is going to change the competition. Like in bodybuilding, like all you can do is focus on just like what you're doing and how you are presenting yourself and the work that you've done to that point. But you have no control over the competition. At least in like running, you can like kind of push the pace or take a specific strategy. But just in a sport like that, where I would just feel so helpless. What's the worst part about bodybuilding? Is it the food tracking?
It's definitely the food tracking, because you have to like plan out your week, what you're going to eat. It takes a lot of time. Not that we're going out to dinner or going out to eat right now that much, but like you couldn't go out with your friends and eat. Like, you couldn't just like eat what you wanted. You have to track it. So if you get something from a restaurant, you can't track it. It was just like, it consumed my life, and it wasn't really a passion of mine to consume. So I wasn't enjoying the fact that I had like no time for other things,
Yeah,
So.
now would be actually a good time for that, since we can't really go out and have fun. Just like really dive in and get after it. I could only imagine. And like, like in your final cut, do you remember how low you were getting? Like was it really squeezing pretty low on the calories?
So it was really low for me, but I've always been kind of blessed with that high metabolism. So I was always able to eat way more than my friends who were competing could eat.
Oh, nice.
Which was like, they weren't really happy about that. But so I was low. It was 100 and something for carbs, which in the hundreds, which is really, really, really low for me. Like 30 in the fat, and then like, higher protein, but it was low, because I would say now I eat like 400 grams of carbs a day.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
Yeah, I even thinking about 100 carbs, like, cause I mean, if you're like a sedentary person, like, and you don't do too much, like I feel like a good number for carbs is probably like a gram per pound of body weight. And that's still not very much. So it'd be like, for me, like 170 grams of carbs really wouldn't be that much. So I could imagine being at 100 and training and then trying to lose that weight. I can't imagine that would be not that fun.
Not a fun time.
Yeah. But I've heard stories of some people getting like crazy low. Yeah. Like I said, some of your friends were probably pretty low on that. because the idea is that you do want to be able to, like, you don't need to go lower as long as you're losing weight, right? You don't want,
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be set super low.
Yeah, I was able to hang around like, close to 300 for a while. And then
Nice.
I dropped down to like it was the upper, like high 100s. I would say closer to like 180. But some people, I mean, they were almost like trying to not eat carbs at all. And, people, obviously, you learn about all the health problems that, come from bodybuilding, people restricting too hard and like their hormones get messed up and everything. And thankfully I never had that problem. I was never too low to have that problem, but I definitely felt shitty quite often.
I can't imagine.
So.
I can't imagine. It's just like part of the deal, just like fogginess and like trying to like, how many times did you go on stage?
Like 6 times, I think.
Oh, wow.
6, yeah.
So you did it for a while.
Yeah, I did it for a while. The first like 2.5 years of lifting, I didn't compete until I felt like I was ready to. And then, and then for like 3 years, I did like 2 or 3 shows a year. So, yeah.
That's pretty good. Because I mean, I think a lot of times people make that the goal and they do it once and they're like, fuck that. I'm not doing that ever again. So that's cool. You're able to kind of persevere and keep rolling with it. So if you look back at that, like, what do you think, can you have any takeaways from like that bodybuilding experience that has allowed you to do well in obstacle course racing? Or like, how do you think that's helped shape like the things, like the way you train or like your like mindset or anything like that?
I think it helped in a couple ways. I think, coming in, starting running, with having a strength background. So like I was pretty strong. I think that helped make me stronger when I started to run. And obviously I continue doing strength work. So I think it's important, to not, to make your body stronger and prevent injury. So I think I was stronger coming into running. I think I learned a lot about nutrition while I was bodybuilding for 5 years. So that also, obviously being an endurance athlete, it's completely different, but I did learn a lot. And I realized during my bodybuilding times that I had a lot of mental toughness and, I could be disciplined. So I think that helps with my training right now. So I think all that helps. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes time, right? Like bodybuilding, it's not, you don't do a 45-minute gym session, right? No. It's a lot. Like how long were those sessions when you were doing bodybuilding?
Close to 2 hours, definitely in the gym, just lifting. And this is no cardio, no anything. So
yeah, we're doing straight like body part splits, or are you kind of doing everything every day?
Yeah, I would do legs 3 times a week, and then I would have 2 shoulder days, and I would have 2 back and arm days. So
2 shoulder days. That's to like, because that will kind of create that like tapered look, right? Is that the idea about more shoulders?
Yeah, the shoulders are like the big thing for the bikini division. The legs and shoulders are like the big thing. So
right, because you want the waist to look really small.
Exactly.
So by building out the like glutes and shoulders, is able to kind of get that taper down look. But yeah, it totally makes sense. And we've talked a little bit before about how like just the way and we're going to talk about the volume that you're putting in now, but like I definitely love that you know how to eat and like understand like that you have to put in a lot of nutrients because of the work that you're doing. And I think that that's something that bodybuilding is really helpful with, is it teaches you what the food actually does to your body. So being able to know like, oh, like even saying something like eating 400 grams of carbohydrates, like that's like a lot for people to like wrap their heads around. Once you start doing it, like you understand like that's what you need. But at first it can really be hard to kind of go into that. And when you do your training, are you eating now on basically how you feel, or like can you kind of take the signals that your body are telling you and just kind of eat to that, or are you still kind of tracking things? What's that look like now?
So I make sure that I get at least 1 gram per pound of body weight for protein. Mm-hmm. So I always make sure I get, and just from tracking for so many years, I kind of know what that looks like. So I kind of know that I will be getting that in a day. When it comes to carbs, I kind of know if I need it. I make sure I eat a lot. I make, especially before training, after training. But I just kind of know what my body needs at this point. So, and it comes to fat, I eat like a decent amount of fat, right? But I believe carbs definitely are what fuel me to do all this high volume training I do. So I feel better when I'm eating a lot of carbs. So I perform better when I eat a lot of carbs.
Right. Yeah. And it's that simple, right? And then you can kind of push where that is. Like, let me try to eat a little bit more and see how that makes me feel and see how that goes. Was that the same? Were you still doing a gram per pound of body weight during bodybuilding, or was that higher than that?
I would go a little bit higher than that, but I know like at least, because with bodybuilding, they kind of say 0.8, 0.8 to 1.1 around there, like per pound of body weight is good. I was always difficult. Like it was always hard for me to grow muscle, to build muscle. So I never wanted to go low on the protein. And especially now because, I am doing strength, but I'm also doing a lot of running and I don't want to, I want to preserve the muscle that I have and I want to make sure I'm, having adequate amounts of protein. So, I think that's a good number to stick to,
I think so. And just based off like the studies that they show, like, yeah, like 0.8 seems to kind of be a solid recommendation. And I think a lot of times you could even get by with less than that. But as an endurance athlete, you're better off playing it safe, especially if you know yourself and you know that you have it, like that muscle is hard to put on. Now that you have it on, it's like, let's keep it.
Exactly.
So you mentioned just being competitive and wanting to kind of push in. This is like kind of where we are into obstacle course racing. That first race, let's call your first race like your actual second race. Like the first race I was at Vernon during the terrible time. Did you sign up for age group or what did you do? Or did you go open?
I was gonna do open and I switched to age group the week before because I was like I might as well just try to see what I can do. So yeah, I switched to age group like the week before.
How'd you do?
So I ended up getting second in my age group, and I didn't even know. So I mean, it was a really difficult race. The conditions were hard. I failed, a couple obstacles. And I left right after the race. So I didn't even know there was an awards ceremony after. I didn't know how any of that worked. So I found out after the race that I actually did get second. So
That's really cool. Yeah. Especially considering you were going to go open and then just decided not to. That day, it wasn't a typical day, right? Like I failed the monkey bars right away and somehow didn't fail the like that gauntlet at the end. But people, people were missing everything. Like people were missing the rings. People were missing the Herc hoist. Herc hoist was so hard. And like the rope climb was really hard at the end. And it was just like back to back to back to back, a bunch of stuff just like
exactly
people.
Horrible.
What'd you miss? You remember?
Yes. I remember the multi-rig. I made it to the second to last rope and I slid off. And at that point, I didn't know how to climb a rope. So I didn't know about the foot technique involved. So I was only using my arms and I didn't make it up the rope.
I couldn't feel my fingers trying to get up that rope. I jumped up once, hands didn't work. I was like, oh my God. Then I really had to get my legs wrapped to start, I think even. I couldn't even jump up to grab it. So that's really not, so only 60 burpees?
Yes, the 60 burpees.
That's really not bad for that day. And the worst part about I failed the monkey bars, which was the first grip obstacle. You ran up the hill and then it was the monkey bars. If you remember, it was like the sled pull and then monkey bars. And then I missed, and doing burpees was the worst part. I wasn't wearing gloves. I wasn't wearing long sleeves. I was a complete idiot. I didn't know what I thought was going to happen, but I had a cut off shirt. I was like, I'll be fine. But doing burpees, my hands were absolutely frozen. Do you remember that part? Yeah.
Yeah. Don't work, then your hands don't work when they're like that. So it makes it so much harder.
Yeah. So after you found out you got sick in your age group, you're like, oh, cool. Did you have any idea that you were because the age group competition is a little bit different, right? You're kind of sent out and it's still, guys and girls, different ages are kind of around. So did you find yourself competing, or in that race in particular, was it just I just want to survive this thing?
At that point, I didn't, I only had, a little bit of running, maybe 2 months of running under me. So I wasn't expecting to do well. I, wasn't expecting to do that well at all, especially. And then when the conditions were as terrible as they were, I didn't think that I, would have placed or anything. So, looking at that, I got second. I was like, wow, that's actually, not bad. Maybe I could be good at this maybe. So. Yeah.
And the next year you ended up in age group competition for a lot of the year, but kind of bounced back and forth between that and some elite weights, right?
I did. So that was 2019 is my first year. So I didn't want to jump to elite because I didn't, I was still like a little bit of running under me, like not much training. So I wanted to see how I would do in age group. So I did Greek Peak as my first 2019 race. And then in age group, I did the New Jersey Ultra in age group. I did New York Sprint and then Palmerton in age group. And after Palmerton, I decided that it's time for me to move up. So after that race, I just switched to elite.
And that makes sense too, because it's like the first half of the year. It's like almost perfectly the first half of the year, right? Like the first 6-7 months, age group, see where you're at, a bunch of different courses as well, and a bunch of different distances. How were you doing in those races? Were you getting the podium every time, or where were you?
Yeah, so I got first in every race except I got in City Field, and which I kind of always would look at my scores or look at my time, like in comparison to the elite wave too, to see how I would do if I did elite. So, I was always told by my friends, like, you're winning everyone, just switch over. And I was like, yeah, but that's a whole different level. I want to make sure I'm ready. I want to, have a couple races under me. So, having that data kind of made me more confident to switch to elite. So
how were you faring in the elites, like with your time comparison? Do you remember like where you were ending up?
Yes. So my first elite race was, I don't know if you know, West Point.
Yeah.
So West Point was my first race, first elite race. And then, Saturday, I was probably never more nervous for a 5K, for a 5K Spartan race in my life. Cause I just kind of was, it's different when you're standing at the elite, like it's just different, so I was really nervous and I ended up getting fourth.
Nice.
In that one, which I was surprised about. And I was also close. Like I wasn't far away from the top 3 girls. And then I think that kind of gave me some confidence. So then Sunday I went back and competed with basically the same girls again. And I won by several minutes. And my time on Sunday would have taken first on Saturday too. And I think, honestly, I just think it was just more of a confidence thing that I didn't really have as much the first day. I was still kind of nervous. And the second day I was like, I can do this. I can run with them. And so I performed better. And on Saturday, I actually did 4 laps for, just for fun after the race. So I had like 16 miles on me on Saturday before the Sunday race, and I performed better Sunday. So
just wasn't enough volume for you that first day. No. You were just too fresh. That doesn't work for you. Right. How did that feel going onto the starting line that first time in the elite wave? I mean, you mentioned, feeling super nervous. Did you feel like what were you nervous about?
I was nervous because I felt like I didn't belong there. I felt like I didn't have much experience racing under me, and I'm racing against like the best of the sport, girls that have way more experience than I do. There was Spartan pros there too. So I just felt like I was kind of just nervous to be around them. So I just kind of felt inadequate and so even though the data showed that I did well in age group, it's still different when you're at the elite start line. So, and then after that race, I kind of got more confidence, and then I did the Dallas Ultra, which was great. It was a great race, and I got third in that, which I definitely was shocked by that. And then the North Carolina Ultra, which you were there for.
I was there. That was the second worst race experience. The first was probably that Spartan Super, your first race. But the North Carolina race was second, certainly.
Yeah, it was hell. It was much hell, but I kind of liked it.
And you won.
I won, but I kind of feel like I do better when it's like that, when those conditions are like terrible. It's kind of when I seem to do better. So even though it was definitely hard, it was just kind of, it was a good race for me because I like pushing through that, borderline hypothermia, falling on my face. Like I like that, like crazy condition. So,
and, Yeah, is it a matter of like why do you like that? Like because like is it yeah, just tell me why you feel like you do better when it's terrible.
I think my, I think my strong point is my mental toughness and like my mental strength to get through things. And I kind of like to see like what I'm capable of when things get really difficult. And I like to see what I'm capable of, even like just in general physically. And I think that's why I kind of gravitated towards the ultra stuff, because I just want to see what I can do. So I think that's why it tests my mental fortitude, and I like that. So
And yeah, so when it gets worse and there's more mental things to consider, like the weather or the terrain, and it's just
yeah,
more fuel for that fire. It's like, good, bring it on.
exactly.
Um, and then going into the ultra, because that sounds like something that has always been present in you. It's like, okay, like I want to see what I'm capable of. Like, let's push this up. Let's see where what I can do with a longer distance there. And then you found some immediate success in that. And how has that kind of shaped the way that you train?
So when I started 2019, I wanted to do the Tri-State Ultra because that was supposedly the hardest Spartan. It's the 30-mile Spartan. So I was like, if I want to do that, I need to run more. I need to have long runs, and I didn't really know much about running, honestly. So I just kind of, looked at some training plans online, kind of developed my own kind of training plan. And I learned a lot in 2019. Like, definitely learned a lot about training. I learned a lot about, what I'm capable of. But because I like the ultra stuff, it was high volume, always, high volume. But I was starting, from a really from a point of no experience. So I kind of had to build up on that. So I kind of built up. In 2019, I, did a 50K before the New Jersey Ultra to get ready for it. And then in the summer, I did a 50 miler. And then in the fall, I did a 100K.
Mm.
So I was just trying to progress like with the distances, like longer and longer, and kind of build up from that. So in addition to racing Spartan races, I also tried to just like run normal ultras and just kind of progress my mileage and my long runs and, through the year.
Mm. So you just looked at it and you're like, all right, I got to run more. Like
Yeah.
straight up, like volume is where I might be lacking this. And if I want to do well at longer races, I'm going to have to run more. And how much were you running when you kind of started that realization, when you had that realization? Do you remember like what your like hours or miles were like when you were first kind of figuring it out?
Yeah. So I do. When I first started, I started with a long run of 10 miles and kind of just gradually would add a couple miles to that long run each week. And I was running flat, mostly just flat. I wasn't really taking time on feet in consideration, and a lot of it treadmill flat. I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't training for the terrain. I was just kind of, but I did a lot of races. So a lot of the races gave me experience. I was almost like using races to train for other races because I did a lot. So, I learned later on, in 2019 that, a lot of times for ultras doing back-to-back long runs is a good, good training, technique. And I do that all the time now. I think that's really good. So I just kind of learned along the way that but I also felt I didn't have a running background. So I felt like, I was racing against people that had years of running under them. And I didn't have that aerobic base. So I was trying to build that aerobic base. And I feel like I'm still trying to build that aerobic base. So, just kind of trying to do as much as I can in a short amount of time. And I feel like I did a lot in a short amount of time, starting from zero.
And how hard 2020 was for a lot of us in terms of training, obviously, and racing. You came away with an awesome year. I felt like you just were able to put in so much work, and it seems like you've made leaps and bounds just based on the limited performances that we were able to have. So where are you now? Like, so what do you like in terms of your miles and because I know you look at miles, time on feet, and elevation. What are these metrics do you follow the most, and which ones do you, and what are those numbers looking like?
So I do a lot of, I track my elevation and I do a lot of that. So it's not so much mileage, it's more so time on feet when you're talking about that. So I try to run around like 12 hours a week, and sometimes it's a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. This past week was 14 hours. It depends, but around 12 hours, 11, 12 hours would be a good spot to be. I like to, anywhere from like 18,000 to 20,000 feet of vert per week. And the mileage will range from 65 to 75 for the most part.
Yeah, it's depending on how much. I mean, the more vert you get, probably less miles you're going to get on
exactly.
that. And so and you've kind of worked into that area and you've kind of been able to manage that. So as you started to build your aerobic base and kind of put time on feet, how was it when it came to like recovery and just like the kind of the beat down your body can handle on that? Because the amount of work you put in, people aren't necessarily even willing to do this. So like when they get here, it's like, okay, how sustainable is it? And like, how long should people kind of stay in that realm? But you're able to consistently do this amount of work, like, and perform relatively well, all things considered, for what we know. I mean, without too many races, but like the performances on like during your training are really strong and doesn't seem to kind of waver much, and you've been healthy. So like, what has that process been like in terms of like building up? Like, what was the hardest part of building the volume to this point?
So, people see what I do now, but they don't realize like I did build up gradually. Like I did, I was doing 50-mile weeks and I was doing 60-mile weeks and 70-mile weeks. And when I was building that during when we first shut down in March, I was working remotely for a couple months. So I had a little bit more time on my hands, which, isn't always the best, but I was able to put in a couple like 100-mile weeks just to see what would happen. To see how my body would handle it, and it handled it well. Not that I need to do that. I don't need to do that. And I don't
the
really
same vert with getting 18 to 20K or more.
With getting around that same vert, basically around the same vert. But I, I don't need to run 100 miles a week. I don't think that might not be sustainable for me. I just kind of wanted to see if I could do it and be healthy, and I was. And I was running a lot of 90-mile weeks, and I felt good. So, the gyms were closed, so I wasn't doing as much strength work either.
Mm-hmm.
I was still doing strength work, but, not as much. I didn't have access to everything that I usually do have access to. So, I think my body adapted well. And I think everybody's body will adapt to what, you push it through. Like if, I wouldn't rush. I wouldn't go from running 40 miles a week to running, 80. I think then you'll feel like a truck hit you and, you could hurt yourself. But if you slowly build up and let your body adapt, to the mileage, and sure, not everybody's going to be high mileage, you might have problems, but if you build slowly, you can see what your body can handle. And, and it helps if you're going to run an ultra that you're doing higher mileage, in my opinion, because after I did a 30-mile long run a couple weeks ago with 10K of vert, and I was basically fine the next day. Like I was a little sore, a little fatigued. My legs were a little tired, but I still went out and ran 15 miles the next day. So my body kind of like adapted to that. It's not going to feel trashed. But in the beginning, when I would run a 50K, I'd feel like, I got hit by a bus and I would, not be able to run the next day. So I think over time, your body will adapt as long as you're consistent, and slowly build.
And that's an important lesson. It's an important thing to keep in mind, especially like right now, as people might start to come back into the season, or who are maybe taking some downtime or coming back into it. But I feel the same way with miles, or like strength training. Even like people don't want to put in strength training time because they're really sore. It's like, hey, you're really sore at first, but then like you kind of stop being sore. So you gotta have to put that in and just be smart about it and building it up. So what do you and do you attribute your ability to handle this and help in a healthy way? Like, what do you attribute that to? Has it just been the patience to build things up and the consistency, or do you think about that sometimes? Like how are you able to do so much work?
So I'm very consistent with the strength work too. So I think doing strength work, I think helps a lot because, lifting weights will make your joints stronger, your ligaments, your tendons, everything stronger. So I think that helps me, to not get injured as easily. I also make sure that I'm fueling correctly and I'm eating enough, because I know that's also really important. So I make sure I eat plenty, and maybe, like, I'm definitely not genetically a gifted runner. In high school, I was one of the slowest runners in like the mile in gym class. It was
Not even on the track, in actual gym class. What was your mile
yeah,
time in high school? Do you remember?
yeah. I think I ran like 8 minutes, 8:30,
Okay.
in the mile gym class. So that's why people say, like, I'm slow. I'm like, well, I was slow too, and I'm still slow, I guess, and depending on who you're talking to, but you can change, you can improve like a lot. Like, I've improved. Like, I never thought that I could run as fast as I am now, like, a couple years ago. So if you work hard, like, you can. If you're consistent, you can. So I think maybe genetically my body is a little bit tough. Maybe it's more resilient, but I don't know. I mean, I don't eat meat or fish, so I'm a vegetarian. I do supplement, accordingly, with things that I am missing. So maybe people don't think I'm as healthy, but I've been really healthy through all this, and my body can handle all the training that I do. So I guess I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And that you're just able to continue to do it, and you've worked yourself to this point. And I think it's just, to me, I would imagine a consistency over time, and just like putting in the work every single day and doing the things that, like I said, people might not be willing to do. I think that's a huge part of like the success you've seen in terms of building up this training volume that people would love to do, but just like don't do. How do you manage your time?
I wake up very early. So
Mhm.
I work 9 to 5, and I work in an office. So between like 8:30 and 5:30, I'm in the car or I'm in an office. So I usually wake up around 3:45 during the week,
Ooh.
3:45, 4. And, so I can train for like 2 hours before work. So that's usually what I do. And then on the weekends, sometimes I have stuff going on. Everybody has stuff going on. So sometimes I do have to wake up. But this weekend I had to wake up at 4 both days to do my long runs. But I usually get up pretty early anyway on the weekends to get my long run in, because I like to do a 20 miler and then do something like around 15 miles too. So like 2 long runs are usually what I do on the weekends. So I wake up early. I sometimes don't get enough sleep, what you're supposed to get. So, I don't always get what you're supposed to get. I don't always do all of the stretching and the foam rolling and all of that fancy stuff as much as I should do, because I might not have the time to, but I'd rather put that time into training.
Mhm.
So I do stretch, I do warm up, just not as much as, a lot of these professional athletes are doing. So,
And
that's kind
that's, but like, you're just like anybody else. It's
yeah.
like you have a limited amount of time, and you just take with what you got and just do wake up crazy early. Are you able to get to bed early enough?
Yeah, I try to get to bed by, like 9:30,
Yeah.
which is quite early compared to a lot of people. And I take one rest day a week. So like one day of not running on Mondays, because I usually try to destroy myself over the weekend. And then Mondays is a good day to like just let my body actually rest. No easy run, just completely rest and then continue going. So
Yeah, and that could
yeah,
be another reason why the sustainability of this, like giving yourself that rest day, where a lot of people just kind of gloss over that, and for the sake of volume or for the sake of doing more, because it's easy to add. Like that'd be the place where you can add more, but like making that a sacred day and
yeah,
resting has to help.
yeah.
Um, so when you're out on that course, say like 2020 happened, or in 2021, when you're on the starting line and other athletes are around you, like what is something you think you do better than anybody else?
Hmm. I, I think I, I don't necessarily think that I'm the fastest runner, but I feel like I'm strong runner. I think like I'm strong, you know, when you're looking at like an OCR course, or you're looking at like a race like that, like it's not always about who's the fastest. It's more about who's, can be a strong runner. So I feel like I have that. I feel like I'm pretty strong and resilient. And then I also feel like I have the mental game too. Like I might, I never say that I'm like the fastest or strongest or whatever, but I do think that I have maybe a mental game that is above the normal person.
Yeah. And I mean, there are just like these intangible parts of OCR that lead to success that just could be the mental part, could just be the resilience and being able to just get knocked around and keep going. It's just hard to tell like what's going to make somebody good. So having that in the back of your head, like I'm mentally stronger than anybody else, has to be an advantage. What is something you need to work on to like really take it to the next level?
I think I need to work on like speed work, getting faster. When I started running, I never implemented any speed work at all. So I just started doing some speed work like about 2 months ago now. So I've been running faster than I've ever ran. So I definitely see the need for that. And you can really improve upon your time when you're actually working on speed. So I think that's like a really important part of training that I just never did. I just kind of was in the ultra mindset of just, get the miles done. So now that I'm doing speed work, I think that will help me be faster and feel faster. So.
Yeah, that's the thing, like feeling faster and like knowing that no one has an advantage over you in that realm. It's like if you don't think you're the fastest, like, well, try to get faster and then see how those results play out. So yeah, I'm pumped that you've been doing that. Track Tuesdays, not so bright and early, super early, not bright when you're out there.
Yes.
And working on pacing. How's that been coming along, the pacing part?
It's coming along a lot better. So pacing is just hard for me because I'm used to running on technical stuff, mountains. You're not really knowing like what your pace is. I'm not really running on flat roads ever. So I'm not, I never really know how fast I'm going. But now that I'm doing these track workouts, I'm learning pacing and, I'm kind of able to settle into a pace, which I think is helpful. And knowing that I can hit this pace and I can just, stay there and run at this pace. I thought that was always like a really big, big problem of mine. Like I just didn't, I always felt like I was really slow compared to a lot of, if you see some of these girls, times, how fast they are. And I always felt like I was really slow. So I just had that disadvantage. But now, like, if you work on it, you can get faster. And so I think trying to work on your weaknesses is definitely something that will make you more confident, which will make you a better racer, in my opinion.
And it's not always that easy, right? Like it's an easy concept to grasp, right? Like it's like, oh yeah, I'll just do the things that I suck at. But like doing the things you suck at, it's less fun. So like, how did you get over like that? Like just because I'm sure you could, instead of going to the track early Tuesday, you could just go to the trails or treadmill and just run for 12 miles and feel great about it. But like, was it hard to like switch up the routine and do something that wasn't going to be as fun?
It was kind of difficult. It was something that I never really thought about wanting to do. It never really caught my interest going to a track. But I kind of wanted to get faster. I wanted to run fast. So that kind of, made me interested in doing track workouts. And then now, like, I don't really enjoy it, but it's a challenge. So I enjoy the challenge of it, so I kind of look forward to it because I'm like, okay, this is going to suck, but it's like a good kind of suck. And it's, good things are going to come from it. So it's like a different challenge. And I like being challenged in different ways. So I kind of look at it that way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good way to kind of spin it because then it just all falls back into the same kind of mindset that you had with all of this. It's like, okay, let's see what I'm capable of. It's like, all right, let's see what I'm capable of running in circles on a track. It's still a challenge. It's not maybe not that cool, that fun.
Exactly.
So what is your goal with obstacle course racing?
So my goal since 2019, since my first season, was to get on the pro team. I guess that's kind of a goal that everybody has, right? As like a horse racer in Spartan, because Spartan, has their pro team. But, I also want to race against, the best in our sport, like, because I've only done a few elite races. So, my goal is to perform well in these bigger races against, the top women in our sport. Whether it's the mountain series or, whatever else, I just, want to kind of be the best that I could, be and see what happens, going against the best. So,
yeah, I mean, you're putting all this training, so you want to see how that kind of stacks up. And do you think about why that is? Or like you mentioned, being competitive, just always being a competitive person, like, that's why leading into bodybuilding, leading into this, why is it important for you to like see how you're stacking up? Like, what is it about competition that like drives you?
I think, well, the competition definitely makes me want harder in training, and, make me perform. I guess, like, this isn't my job, like, I know this is like a hobby. I'm like a normal 9-to-5 working person. This is like a hobby of mine, but like, I feel like this sport was like made for me. I kind of felt that way when I first got into it because, I'm a decent runner, but I'm strong and the obstacles always came easy to me. So I feel like I can do good things in this sport, and I feel like I can perform well. So I'm just kind of curious to see like how well I can do. So, and I'm willing to put in the work and the time that I'm able to do to see if those results play out the way I think they might. So.
What do you think for this year? What are you going to do?
So I don't know like what the year is going to look like now. It's a little, I really don't know, but I want to, I love the Spartan Ultras. I 100% love them. And I want my A race to be the 24-hour Spartan, world championship. That's like what I want. But I also want to try to be competitive, maybe in the mountain series. So that's something else that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I think that's the 24-hour race, definitely. I would love to see how you compete in something like that. And are you what about World's Toughest or the Toughest Mudders things? Have those like piqued your interest at all? Because they have those 12-hour races.
Yeah, so I did my first Tough Mudder in 2019. I did the Philly Toughest, the 12 hours.
How was that?
So it was cool. It's very different than Spartan in a way, like, you're constantly wet the whole time. So you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to wear this wetsuit, and then, okay, maybe I'm going to take this wetsuit off. I'm going to put this wetsuit top on. It was really like, it was definitely a different type of experience. And the obstacles were more fun, I felt like, than grip intensive. There weren't heavy carries. There were no sled drags. There was like 2, rig type obstacles, like a monkey bars and a rig. So I prefer Spartans, obstacles more. So I liked it. I definitely liked it. But I think I prefer Spartan over Toughest Mudder.
It's so weird in Tough Mudder. Like, you are like, I agree, like Funky Monkey is super fun. It's like the best obstacle ever. And what are the other ones? They're like not super hard, but they're really fun. But like, they're just, a lot of the obstacles, they just like dig holes in the ground and fill them with water, and they just call it a different name. Like, this is Quagmire. Yes. It's like, oh, what's that? It's like, oh, this is Quagmire with now a net over top. You just like are in water pits the entire time.
That's what it is. You're in the mud, crawling through water, underwater, something like that the whole time. So
yeah. So the 24-hour race, and then just seeing how you're stacked. So you're going to travel a little bit if we can, depending.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'd love to see it. I'd love to see how you stack up in those type of races. Because obviously the way that you train, like we would think that the longer races would suit you better just based on the amount of volume that you're able to handle and do every single day, every single week. But I'd love to see how you do in like a super, do a Palmerton or something like that.
Yeah, and I did, this summer I did a couple, FKTs that were shorter too. So, and that was kind of my first taste at like speed work, was doing an FKT, and, and I think doing my volume and doing a lot of climbing has made me faster naturally, but I just kind of wanted to take it to like the next level and actually incorporate like real speed work. But I liked the shorter, all out hard stuff,
Nice.
Which I thought I would like. So I kind of want to also, play around with that too. And, for Spartan races and for, mountain races that are, non-ultra mountain races, there's like the vertical K, different types of races like that. So I kind of want to do both now.
Good. Yeah. And not shying away from some, because sometimes you see those ultra athletes are like, I would never run a 5K. It's like, well, you should try. And
Yeah.
like I mentioned before, like the season, quote unquote, wasn't great for many people, but for you, I feel like you did have a good season. Like you knocked out a bunch of FKTs, right? Like tell us a little bit about your 2020, like some of the things that you were able to accomplish even without any obstacle course races.
Yeah. So once the races all stopped, I heard about the FKTs, and, I'm a 2-hour drive from the Catskills in New York, and I'm 4-hour drive from the Adirondacks, and they both have lots of mountains. Once everything shut down, I spent more time running in the mountains, and I kind of developed like a love for that, and now kind of want to specialize in that. So I went after a couple mountain FKTs locally and in New York. So I did like 5 or 6. So that was great. And then I did it was an invitational 24-hour event at Joe's Farm, which was up and down a mountain for 24 hours. It was about 2 miles with 1,000 feet of gain for 24 hours. I actually won that one, and that was my first 24-hour race. And I thought it would be a good, prep for doing the 24-hour Ultra Worlds if that was going to happen. I think it's good to, get experience with that. So that was really cool.
What were the total stats? Like, what were your metrics on that 24? It was something crazy, right? Like, what did it end up being?
It was 73 miles and 31,000 feet of elevation.
Nice. How'd you bounce back from that?
Really pretty well. I thought I was going to be out for a week. But the next day I was sore, I was sore for the next couple days, but I was running the race was Saturday to Sunday, and I was running again on Wednesday, slow, easy,
yeah, slow,
slow. But I turned around pretty quickly with that. And so somehow I bounced back. And I feel like that kind of, even though I've never done anything, that far or that long before, I think just with my training volume that my body has adapted to doing a lot. So that's why I was able to bounce back the way I did.
100%. And can you talk about Spartan Games?
Yes.
Are you allowed?
Yes, I can, basically, yeah.
Okay, because we can always edit this stuff, but you were at the Spartan Games, right?
Yes, I was at the Spartan Games.
Yeah. And that seemed like a really cool experience to have for 2020, right? Like, do you think you're going to be on camera at all?
So I was invited late. I was invited a week before the event. Joe wanted to invite me to compete alongside, these 24 athletes to see how I would do against, all the pros, all the best of the best. He knows my name because of how I did at the 24-hour race at his farm. So I met him there. He knows of me there. Some people were kind of in his ear, I guess, too, about me, saying good things. So I guess he wanted to see how I would do. And there was also a man who was supposed to come too, but he never actually showed up. So it was just me as the 13th female. So I competed in the events, but my points did not count. My rankings did not count. So I didn't pull points away from anyone or anything, but I was able to compete in everything. And it was like a great experience to be able to do that and to do all these events. And I did things for the first time that I've never done before. And, met all these amazing people and got to compete against the best. So, it was great. It was amazing.
I mean, being there and being able to compete, because that was a big thing that, we've talked about on this, like seeing how you're stacking up and just being able to compete against everybody. But how are you feeling about it now after the fact? Are you happy that you went, or is because it seems like it's weird how it went down, but like the experience that you got, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was really weird how it went down. And I was told that I probably would not be in the storyline of the show because the storyline was 12 female, 12 men who were invited, to see who the best athlete in the world was. So because I wasn't part of that competition, where my points weren't part of the competition, that I was probably not going to be seen. That I was not going to be, in that storyline, wouldn't be involved. They did film. I was introduced the first night by Joe to all the athletes as being, the 13th female who was going to compete with them, blah, blah, blah. So that was all like, they didn't know about me. So it was shocking to them.
It didn't go over well with them, right? There was some drama behind that, right?
Yeah. So, you know, it depends what you listen to, unfortunately it's not aired, but I would say most of the athletes were really, really, really nice. And they were very much like, we don't care that you're here. Like, they actually felt bad for me because I was kind of like put up in front of the room and Joe was kind of talking. And, they were just kind of like, there was a couple that were like, well, what's going on with this? Like, why is she here? But most of them were like, just come and sit down with us. Like, it's fine. Like, so, and after that, like, they were all really nice to me. They were really like, they were great. Like, there was no drama, like from between me and the athletes, there was no drama at all. They were all really nice. So
good. You hope to hear that. And it's going to be interesting to see like how you're not going to be on screen in the next coming episodes, but we don't want to have any spoilers. So I know you have a hard stop. I'm going to let you go. We'll have to bring you back. Of course, we'll have you back on more so we can talk a little bit further about this because we're going to just keep an eye on your training and seeing how everything goes. You're going to get so fast. You're going to get so strong in the mountains. It's going to be awesome. So I'm excited for that you're on board with TORC. I think you're going to have an awesome season. Like 2020 went amazing. I think 2021 is going to be really, really strong for you. If we just got to get out there now.
Exactly. Can't wait.
So I'll link to your socials and all that in the show notes because I know you got to run. But I appreciate you popping on.
Of course. Thanks, Rich.
All right. Talk to you soon.